Welcome to the Morning Ramble. I'm Matt.
And I'm Eric.
And today we're going to go over a few memes. Some of them funny, some of them a little more serious.
Yep.
And we're going to start out with a great one.
All right, what do you got?
It's this one here. It says, human muscles are limited by our brain. We actually have the strength to move cars and boulders.
And it's just picking up a backhoe.
Yeah, that guy's he's going at it.
I'll have to try that.
You should.
All right. You know, I have nothing.
Well,
I have absolutely nothing on that.
Well, it's like you look at things like this, and I don't think anyone's stupid enough. All right, I take that back. There's stupid people in this world to try to lift a car or lift a boulder and stuff like that, but it's
it depends of adrenaline. You know,
there have been cases, yes, where humans did superhuman things like ripping a car door off,
you know, to save someone or like an accident or something like that. That's very heavy stuff, but what isn't often said about these things is most of the time these people are hurt really bad when they do that. And they don't realize it.
Exactly. They tear muscles. They really hurt themselves doing things like that. And for somebody to just say, oh, yeah, well, you know, it's just limited with our mind. Did you know you only use 80% of your mind?
Oh, that's not.
It's stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, your mind, you're not a superhero.
Yeah.
None of us are. Except for our sponsor, Wendy's.
Really break back into the Wendy's? All right. I'm going to throw this meme up on the video. But it's one that I shared recently. And it's one of a kid crying. And it says to take 30% of your kid's ice cream to teach them about taxation. And I found that because I thought it was pretty funny because I do this with my daughter already. If I buy her a candy bar, I take a piece of that candy bar. One, because I want to. And two, it teaches her a valuable lesson that you never earn everything.
Right, unless you work under the table.
Under the table. Unless you break the law.
Yes, and we don't condone that here.
No, absolutely not.
Neither does our sponsor, Wendy's. It's actually funny that you brought up that one there because schooling in this country, I know that this is a tangent here, but schooling in this country does not teach kids to be adults in the real world well enough.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I never learned how to do taxes.
Oh, we can't go into this because I'll go on forever.
Oh, please do.
Well, no, that if you're going to talk about schooling and kids, that personal finances is something that I'm very particular about. One, because of my job, and two, because people just, it's not taught. It's not even there. And if it is there, it's very, well, it's not useful. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, let's teach you how to check your checkbook. Well, that's useful. Kids are not taught anything about loans or interest or anything that pertains to your life, because those two things alone are, you know, have something to do with your housing, your education, your transportation, anything that you want to buy that you know outside of that, your credit. You know, it's not taught. People don't know what an APR is. People don't understand what interest is or what the word accruing means or anything like that. They don't understand like how, you know, payments work. Right. You know, and personal finances, people just don't understand, and kids don't understand. And that's why kids are walking out of school, you know, with a couple $100,000 of debt. You know,
and that's terrifying.
Yes.
It's like when that realization really hits you,
mm-hmm.
that you're in a ton of debt, and you're just like, no one, like it seems obvious to us as adults,
yes,
who have a full understanding of the world.
Yes.
But when you're, 18,
mm-hmm.
you don't understand money.
Yes.
As well as you should.
And there needs to be in high school, it needs to be taught so that they understand, you know, what they're getting themselves into, and they can make responsible decisions.
Like, we had a home economics course.
Mm-hmm.
Home ec.
Yeah.
I learned how to use a sewing machine. And I did that for months. And it's like, I'll just go buy another shirt.
How do you hem your pants? You need to know how to hem your pants.
I'll just buy a different size pants.
Buy a different size pair of pants.
Like, I've never in my life had to sew something.
Yeah. Or give them to your mom. She can do it.
My mom could do it, yeah. And my mom could teach me how to sew if I wanted that.
There you go.
But it's like home economics.
Yeah.
Economics? I didn't learn a thing about economics there. And it's just like, I want to know how to pay my bills.
Yeah.
I want to know how to talk to somebody who I call on the phone.
Yeah.
Because I'm a scared little boy who doesn't like calling bill collectors.
Well, you want to know what people are saying.
Absolutely.
You want to know about insurance. What do you need?
Yeah.
You want to know, what's the difference between like a vehicle loan or a mortgage, or, you know what I mean? Is there a difference? These things aren't known until it's too late or people have to learn the hard way, So that's, it's a shame.
I mean, there are a lot of courses, and we're still on this crazy tangent here.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of courses in high school that are probably not necessarily necessary.
Yeah.
But it's like just a little bit of basic life stuff.
Well, I think it should be a requirement. It shouldn't be like an elective. And I think in your junior or senior year of high school, you should have a course that literally just talks about personal finances, which I think some schools do have it, but it nearly does not go into the things that you should be learning. It should be going into all the things that we just listed.
Yeah. And you're super good at stuff like that. You're on top of things. Like you have spreadsheets.
Well, I kind of have to.
Yeah.
But
because you're a champion at it.
But yeah, so that's our opinion on that. But what meme do we got today? What are we going into?
Well, this is a pretty heavy one.
Oh.
As soon as I get to it. That was Pork Henge. You can show that.
Okay.
All right, this is the one. I'll read it out to you because it's not that long.
Okay. I don't even know who this. We just pull memes. I don't even know who these people are.
We don't know who these people are. We're just going to judge them.
Okay. Sounds great.
All right. It says the Holocaust was legal. Slavery was legal. Segregation was legal. People who hid Jews in their homes were criminalized. People who freed slaves were criminalized. People who stood up for equality and justice were criminalized. Legality is not a guide for morality. I didn't realize how rhymey that was.
Yeah.
It's catchy.
Well, very answer to that is laws are always changing as our culture changes.
Absolutely.
Now that would apply, I would say, to slavery, which I'm going to come back to. But I just want to tackle that first line. The Holocaust was legal. To who? To the German law, I guess, at that time, the regime.
I mean, right? If it was a military state, so if the military
in a time
tells
of
you
war
to do stuff, then you do it.
Yeah. I would say to the world.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know. The UN obviously wasn't a thing.
Right.
But
there was that accord after World War I where this stuff not cool. But in World War I, interesting factoid here that just popped into my head. In World War I, when the Allied side was fighting the Germans, there were a lot of rumors about atrocities that were basically baseless. So when the rumors of the Holocaust actually came out, a lot of people didn't believe them.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah,
because of that past thing.
I think it was just so incomprehensible. Like people just couldn't fathom something that horrifying was even happening, and it wasn't until towards the end, of World War II that all these people and all this stuff was coming out.
I mean, there are still people who say the Holocaust didn't happen.
Those people are crazy and insane and disgusting, honestly. But
that was amazing, Eric. Slavery was legal. Slavery was legal in the states where it was practiced until certain laws were passed and some wars were fought over it.
Yeah. Well, again, I would say that was a culture thing. I mean, slavery was a thing since the beginning of man.
Human machines.
Yeah.
That, I mean, obviously, slavery was terrible.
Oh, of course.
But it's like basically people were just used as human machines. And then when technology got to a better point, then people were like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have other men do things that these machines can do.
Well, as far as law goes, I mean, you could also point out that it wasn't until man and the government stepped in and said, we need to stop this. And then obviously half the country said no, because, this is our livelihood. And then a war broke out, and, and I think it's crazy how not long ago that was.
Yeah.
If you in the scheme of the world and as a country, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And that's why World War II is such a, to the Holocaust, that was definitely not long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like yesterday, like as far as the scheme of the world and civilization goes. That's why it was so horrifying. It's like, because obviously genocide and stuff like that happened, all throughout history.
Yeah, and there's video of World War II.
Yeah.
And that's like, that just absolutely blows your mind, doesn't it?
And pointing out, and World War II in color. Netflix.
I love that.
That is I've seen that probably 3 times. It's one of my favorite things to watch on Netflix.
Ramble approved.
Ramble approved. But that was one of the worst things that come out of World War II, but it wasn't the only thing. The Soviet Union killing millions of its own citizens, letting their own citizens starve.
Yeah.
That was, more people died in that.
There were huge waves created by the war itself and the agreements reached after the war, especially with the Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall, big deals. And it changed the trajectory of entire countries.
Yeah.
Like especially Japan. We just really went on a tangent.
Yeah.
Okay. People who hid Jews in their homes were criminalized. Yeah. Again, military state.
Yeah.
People who freed slaves were criminalized. Yeah. It was the zeitgeist. It was the spirit of the times.
You could say that people who were keeping slaves were criminalized because the Union declared war on the Confederacy, so you could say it the reverse way. But yes, I see your point, or his point.
People who stood up for equality and justice were criminalized. Legality is not a guide for morality. So
yeah, and these aren't the only places where that is shown. Obviously the civil rights movement, and throughout the 50s and 60s, is where you'd point out a lot of that, like the law of segregation, different schools, Jim Crow laws.
Yeah, there have been great strides over the past decades in rectifying a lot of these inequalities.
I would say, though, as far as law is not always morality, that's a good point to make. But I would say today, I'm pretty confident to say that we do not have any, immoral laws.
In Pennsylvania, it's illegal to sleep on top of a refrigerator.
You shouldn't be sleeping on top of a refrigerator. That's where your food is.
Oh man.
But yeah, there's obviously those stupid laws that are still around. But
they're antiquated. It's not really a thing anymore.
I would say though we're to a point now where there is no, immoral laws such as segregation and stuff like that. Like there is no, systematic oppression or racism. Now that probably could be argued by a lot of people right now, but I would like someone who believes that to point out the law. Yeah, because if there's no
major laws that are built to hold someone down that I'm aware of. Not in this country. In other countries, there are definitely.
Oh, of course,
especially in the Middle East.
Well, what did we just hear? Was it a year or two ago? It was huge news that the president in, I think it was Saudi Arabia, they were allowing women to drive. It was like a big movement. And I'm like, what? Step. What is that? Like we're today in the, the 21st century?
Yeah.
So
a lot of those places, like women can't walk outside by themselves.
Yes.
They have to have a male companion with them. And that's just like, if all of her male companions leave or die, people have been known to starve to death because they can't get out of their house.
It's disgusting. So that argument there obviously can be put towards a lot of different countries over there. I would say though in the West, no.
Yeah, and one big question that you have to ask when you ask a question like this, like should morality translate into law?
Mm-hmm.
The big question is, whose morality?
Oh yeah, whose morality?
Is it my morality or your morality?
Yeah.
Is it the morality of the biggest group in the country because we are
Mob
a
rule.
democracy?
Yeah.
So would this be the morality of you or the morality of me? Is there a perfect person whose morality we can all agree on?
And that's the question: is whose morality? You know, and in every culture, every country, you know, there's a different ideology, you know, and from, you know, where, you know, the culture that we grew up in, obviously Christian, you know, area. So a lot of time, like, I know, like, we might ask the question, like, could there be morals without God? You know, and every ideology probably asks that question.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. I've asked myself that question many times. And then that's another kind of concern that I'm sure a lot of people have on this topic is there has been a trend
Mm-hmm.
in the world at large and especially in this country where organized religion is definitely just dying down. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of churches have to close, especially the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
These people who identify as X or Y in religion, a lot more people are going towards agnostic or spiritualism or stuff like that. So if the mass morality changes in 50 years, where do we go from there?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just culture evolving, you know, and different parts of the world are ahead from others, just like we were talking about in the Middle East. So, you know, over there, women can't walk alone. They can't drive, you know. Depending on who you are, you're going to be thrown off the top of a building, you know.
True.
You're going to be killed. Over here, it's nothing like that. You know what I mean? And to them, it seems normal and it's what's right. And to us, it seems horrific and
Right.
awful. So it's moral and laws, I think, are always changing and evolving. And someone can make the argument that, like, ones have always stayed the same, you know, like do not kill. You know, pretty universal one. Not all of them have
Except
that.
for the Crusades. I mean, that was a lot of killing there.
A lot of killing. You know, and then the thing is man, I didn't know we were diving this deep on morals, but then you can get into capital punishment, you know.
Oh, yeah.
How do we view that?
That one's going to be a deep dive one of these days.
Right.
We got a lot to say on
right
it.
now. No. But no, capital punishment, you know, if you're a Christian like myself, you know, are you for capital punishment or not? And a lot of people who are Republican, no, I'm not saying just Republicans, but I do believe in capital punishment. You know, if you kill someone and you intentionally do so, then a lot of people feel that you should lose your life as well. And while I do agree to some points of that, and I can understand that point of view, for me personally, it's kind of like, who am I to say that someone shouldn't live? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't care what that person's done. Like, who gives me the authority to say that? You know,
Right.
to say, you know what, you killed that person. You know, it was wrong. I'm now going to take your life. You know, and that's, you know, that's kind of the moral dilemma with capital punishment as far as I would say the West goes. Because I think even people who aren't Christians, obviously, they have a lot of problems with capital punishment because they just don't believe that, you know, anyone should be losing their life.
Oh, it's also the system of capital punishment we have is messed up, but we won't get too into that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it is a pretty
but
crazy system.
One thing that I do have to say is I'm very intrigued with how some parts of Christianity are evolving, especially with the new Pope in the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
he is making strides to attract today's person.
Yeah, and I don't want to go into how I feel about the Pope. I'm not Catholic.
I mean, I'm not Catholic either. I'm
know.
just very interested to see somebody saying something different after years and years of the exact same thing.
Yeah. As far as Catholicism, yes, like that is very interesting. I don't really look to Catholicism though as like my, you know, like for people who don't know, like the different denominations within the Christian church, as far as like Catholics, Catholicism, Roman Catholic, you can go into Protestants, there's like
And
several
then
different
there's
sub-denominations,
sub-denominations.
Baptist. We could do that another time.
There's
if you'd
literally
like.
a huge list
Mhm.
of people that consider themselves Christians.
Yes, yeah, Christian means Christ, pretty much. And then as far as what maybe what values you hold higher than others within the Christian faith would kind of categorize you under the whatever denomination, and then non-denominational.
Right.
That's a thing too.
Right, and that has been cropping up a lot recently.
Yeah, and there's a reason for it, but we'll separate from that. But yeah, I think moral and law, there are certain morals that have always been into law, at least for the most recent, couple centuries, like do not kill,
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one.
Yeah, don't steal, kind of here.
That's a pretty good one,
Yeah.
too.
Yep. Yeah, and each ideology has like where they get their kind of like their morals from. Christians, 10 Commandments, the Bible, stuff like that. Through different stories in the Word of God, that's where they hold a lot of their morals. And Muslims, it's the Quran. I don't know too much about the Quran. I've read a couple verses. A little crazy, but
I'd be interested.
the Bible has
reading
some crazy stuff in it too, and for Christians there's a meaning for it. But yeah, everyone has their different ideologies, and the kind of like their ideologies obviously go into law. You have a community that has a certain belief, and those go into the law. That's just how it works, and that's why I do believe in like separation of state. Different states have different laws for their community. That's why we have the system that we do have.
I've got an interesting question for you. Trump is a
Oh, that's a big question.
he is that's not I haven't even said the question yet. He's a radical force in government. When he started running,
Yeah.
it really brought people out of the woodwork.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed some subgroups that were quiet
Mm-hmm.
to subgroups that were very, very loud.
Yeah.
I'm not saying whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think that
Mhm.
anything that gets somebody out to a voting booth to vote
Yeah.
is a good thing.
Yes.
Please vote.
Vote.
November's coming up.
That's right.
But the real question here is, with such a radical change there, if morality was to follow law perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
then our laws would change quickly there. But then if we go back to I don't really know a good way to put this besides like a milquetoast Republican
Mm-hmm.
or a milquetoast Democrat, if we go back to that, then
Yeah.
those ideas kind of disappear again. So it's like maybe morality does sort of follow law, but it's only very basic, very strict things like not killing, not stealing.
Well, I mean, you bring in Trump, and I think the one thing that I think that mainstream media and that people don't understand is like you have to be able to distinctify the man and his office, his political policies. As far as the office goes, I don't think that the policies that we've seen the past 2 years in his term have changed much from the Republican platform.
You're 100%
The
right.
man is completely different. It's not Jeb Bush. It's not. We don't have. It's not like.
Can you imagine that Animaniacs song though?
Which one's that?
When they're saying all the presidents,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you
it'd
mean.
be like in Bush and Clinton and Bush and Obama and Bush.
Yeah, Bush. Yeah.
We need a Bush every other.
Every other time it's Bush. Yeah, every 3 or 4 it's Clinton. But yeah, no. But the man, that's why like when you see like in the mainstream and you see all these things that come out, like look what he's done. Christians they claim to be moral.
That bothers me so much.
He did this, and I'm just like, first of all, Trump's been in the public eye for his whole life. Like, do you think that the people that voted him in were so ignorant that they did not realize who they were voting for? I mean that seriously. Like people who know me know that I was not for Trump at all during the primary. I was against Trump. because and even now I still don't like the guy that much as a person. Like, I'm not a fan of the way he conducts himself in public. There's no way that, if one of us were in the public eye, we would ever conduct ourselves that way.
Oh, absolutely.
But as far as is his effectiveness on the market, on his policies and stuff, it's working. It works. I can't argue with him because it's what the things that he's put through, I do not disagree with at all. His policies, the tax reform, those kind of things. But now we're going into politics and away from morality.
I haven't really seen too much different.
Yeah, it's not.
The thing that really gets me, and we can do a bunch of these one day, is the thing where it's like Trump is deporting citizens.
No, he's not.
All right, Trump is not sitting there at the border picking people out and tossing them out himself. Things that happen underneath him are not necessarily like
they're not different.
He's not calling people. They're not calling him and saying, "Hey, yo, can I throw this dude out?" Yeah. They're based off of policies that were made in the early 90s.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, not just that too, but it's not as far as Trump. Like, a lot of like his foreign policies, like they're not much different from Obama. Obviously, Obama did some pretty crazy things during his terms, like amnesty and stuff like that. But they're not much like what he's doing now isn't much different than what Obama was doing in 2014. But going
not
back,
much has changed, but the loudness.
Exactly, it's very loud in in our country. Like the media, they're just trying to spotlight every little thing. But the reason why you brought up Trump, and the reason why, like, his morals, I would say, the man is completely different from his office, and I think that's a distinction that a lot of people don't really, either they don't care about or they just don't understand when people bring out news stories about him. He was hired to do a job. What he's done in 2006, I don't really care. I'm not perfect. No one's perfect.
Oh, I have said some screwed up things.
Yeah, how about we put everything if let's say that they got everything, let's say everything's out that he's ever said in his lifetime, like the worst things, so far not so bad, I would say. Like, think about it. Like, think about all the things that come out that he said. They're not great. They're not flattering anyway. Right. But I would say for a person, like that.
For a millionaire,
there could be a lot worse.
Like, for a billionaire playboy, it could have been way worse. Mm-hmm. Oh, and also with Eric mentioning about mainstream media, we are not mainstream media. We are so non-mainstream. We're literally in a basement.
That's right. We could be.
You couldn't find us if you wanted to.
We're in a secret bunker.
Yeah, we've been here for weeks.
This is one of 50. You'll get them periodically.
They're identical.
They're identical in every way.
All right. Well, that is this week's Ramble. Thanks for joining us. Yep. I have been Matt.
He has.
He's Eric.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.